Woo! Woo! I'm running a little late this morning. It's not a shocker.
Chris Duel.
My, oh my. What a difference a day makes in the world of sports. So much going on, starting with the NBA Finals. We got us a series now. News about the vice president of the NFL Players Association. That ain't pretty. NBA 2K, we know the cover. Jay Cutler talking about CTE issues. More on Trevor Bauer. COVID striking the the Team USA Olympic men's basketball team. Oh my God. The British Open underway. A gazillion things to talk about this morning in the world of sports on a Throwback Thursday. Welcome in to the Chris Duel Show, along with Shannon Salty Sweeney. In a moment, we will introduce our soundscape stylist, Dave Ayler. But Shannon, my gosh, there's just all kinds of sports things happening, both on the courts or the fields or the golf greens, but also off as well. We got a lot to cover in the next 3 hours.
Also strange, all things I don't think I would have imagined we'd be discussing at this time of year. You mentioned the vice president of the NFLPA. I think when we saw this person's name trending, we thought, oh, he's found a team.
And hopefully it's the Cowboys, was what I thought. I said, please, Cowboys, please.
And the reaction on Twitter, as well as my own, was very shocked and very disturbed, and news just kept coming out yesterday.
And of course, you're referring to Richard Sherman, who, and it was interesting. I was listening, and we'll probably play you a chunk of it here as well. I was listening before we come on the air, the national show, which is now hosted by Jonas Knox and Brady Quinn. Outkick the coverage. They're still calling it that. It was Clay Travis before he and what's that guy's name? Buck Sexton, one of my favorite names now in radio. I'm Buck Sexton. They moved over to take over the Rush Limbaugh time slot. So now it's Brady Quinn and Jonas Knox. Anyways, Shannon, they played less than an hour ago, and I heard it for the first time, the 911 call from Richard Sherman's wife to the police dispatcher. And it's powerful, it's compelling, it's emotional. And again, we think about guys in sports or gals, but in the NFL, guys in sports who get into trouble, and obviously, Greg Hardy, a former Cowboy, a poster child comes to mind. I mean, there's been a litany of them. There's been tons of them, but one of the last guys you would expect, even though he's been known to be on the field and in interviews kind of volatile, but never something we would expect like this. Richard Sherman, especially as vice president of the NFL Players Association. I mean, he has to deal with these situations a lot with the league and with his fellow players, and in educating his fellow players to try to stay out of trouble. But things went very, very south for Richard Sherman.
And I think the immediate question is why?
Yeah.
Because again, it's very out of character. And is it because he hasn't found a team and he's still wanting to play? Does he have too much free time on his hands? We're 2 weeks out from training camp. Is he getting frustrated about everything? Is it just gotten to a boiling point? Or is there history of this in the past that we've just never been aware of? And it was one thing after another. I think the first thing I saw was that there was an altercation and he was taken in for arrest. And then there was this story about him possibly wanting to harm himself, and a possible hit and run situation that had happened earlier. It's just very strange. thought I was going to see him announcing where he would be playing next, and unfortunately, that just was not the case.
And I wonder, Shannon, you talk about what a difference a play makes in that Super Bowl against the Patriots down on the goal line where the Seahawks, on the one, if they handed off to beast mode, who had been dominating, most people believe the Seahawks would have scored a touchdown, would have won 2 Super Bowls, which, obviously puts you in a different stratosphere. You win 2 Super Bowls, people start using the D word, dynasty. In the aftermath of that Seahawks Legion of Boom defense, led by Richard Sherman and Earl Thomas, became very, very angry, very negative with regard to Pete Carroll and that coaching staff. We all know that shortly thereafter, Earl Thomas wound up leaving the Seahawks and the Legion of Boom. Richard Sherman left the Seahawks and the Legion of Boom. And now, interestingly, Shannon, 2 of the stalwarts on that defensive secondary, when you think Legion of Boom, 2 of the first names that would come to mind were Earl Thomas and Richard Sherman. Both of those guys have subsequently gotten in trouble with the law. And right now, as we speak, both of those guys are out of football. And if we would have told you, I guess 2 years ago, that both Richard Sherman and Earl Thomas in now mid-July of 2021 would be out of football on this day, I think both of us would have bet a lot of money against that.
Yes, agreed. But it is kind of refreshing to see the NFL choosing to look elsewhere when we do have these guys that find themselves in these circumstances, especially when they are such notable figures, that they're choosing to have good people as a part of their organization versus someone who, is making decisions that I don't think other people would make given the opportunities that they've been given. I'm trying to find, is Richard Sherman still being held? Because they wouldn't release him yesterday on bail because of the charge that was going to be against him, domestic violence. They hold that person until they can be in front of a judge. And it looked like as of last night, he still hadn't been put in front of a judge. So he might still be detained this morning.
Yeah, I have not heard otherwise that he has been released. So my goodness.
Just add that not only are those guys out of the NFL, one is in a cell.
Well, and Shannon, okay, here he's the vice president of the Players Association. He's a free agent. You and I've brought his name up with you, as have you, for maybe Cowboys in this offseason. Wow, do we want to spend the money? And I had argued he's a leader. He's got a ring. He's a leader. He's got gravitas. He could whip that defense into, regardless of it. Granted, you could argue maybe his skill level and his speed as a defensive back may have diminished a little bit, and he was on that 49er team that has gone to the Super Bowl just 2 years ago and been very successful. So dude is a winner and a leader, and he's a leader as vice president of the NFL Players Association. I wanted the Cowboys to spend whatever money necessary to sign him as a free agent. Now, I mean, this is a big deal. This is apparently domestic violence with the uncle of his wife or estranged wife, whichever the case may be. I'm not certain. I've heard both. But the NFL, in a situation like this, when police are called and you are jailed, there's conduct policy suspensions that happen. And so, I mean, now, and dude's vice president. Now, if you sign Richard Sherman, what's he going to get? 4-game, 6-game, 8-game suspension automatically just because of this conduct? It's hard to wrap my head around at 6:19 in the morning.
And would they make an example out of him because he is held in such high regard as the vice president of the NFL Players Association? For people who, if this was the NBA world, the vice president in the NBA is Andre Iguodala. He's first vice president. And then other vice presidents include Jaylen Brown and CJ McCollum and Kyrie Irving. And then, of course, Chris Paul is your president. That's like one of them getting in trouble.
Yeah. And
you say those names, you don't associate them with this sort of activity.
Yeah, and I think you could make the argument. You say Chris Paul, as big as Chris Paul's name is in the NBA, Richard Sherman on a par with that in the NFL, on and off the field. All right, we are coming up on 6:20. We do this every morning. For the time being, we're doing it. I think this is week number 1 of 4, or is it week number 2 of 4? Anyway, we're doing this for 4 weeks. It's the Grand in Your Hand cash giveaway. The reason I mentioned the 4 weeks, over the 4 weeks, we are part of giving away $228,000, $1,000 at a time. And I've been telling you, somebody wins the money. You may as well get your name thrown into the hat and see if you can win that money, because somebody does and will. So you're going to get a keyword right now and again at 7:20 and 12 times throughout the day on the 20s right here. So keep listening. So Dave Ayler is going to fire this off. It is the Grand in Your Hand cash contest.
Now, your chance to win $1,000. Text the nationwide keyword cash to 200-200. You'll get a confirmation text and info. Standard data and message rates apply in this nationwide contest. That's cash to 200-200.
Cash is the word. 200-200. You text it there, and we'll do this again at 7:20. You get another chance at $1,000. Chris Duel show with Shannon Salty Sweeney. In fact, since he is the man who fired off that contest audio, let us welcome in. And now we see him on Facebook Live. Super Dave Ayler wearing his Adidas, big Adidas logo t-shirt. And when I see Adidas, I remember, and I don't know if he finished out his career with Adidas. I think he did. It is amazing. And Shannon and I talk about who has what deals with what shoe companies, Dave Ayler. But when I see Adidas now, I think Tim Duncan, because for the longest time, Tim Duncan wore Adidas and had a deal with Adidas. So I guess that shows you the power of a shoe deal for a big athlete. Do you have an Adidas shoe deal, Dave Ayler?
I wish I did, because I'd be making a lot of money. So I'd be wearing their shirt. I've got Adidas shoes on right now. A lot smaller than what Tim Duncan wore. But I think you're right, because I remember at Alpha Louise Radiothon one year, we got signed shoes from Tim.
Ooh, very
Somebody
nice.
Got those were Adidas.
Wow.
I think you're right.
See, Dave and Shannon, big athletes have shoe deals. Now we have college athletes who can get name, image, and likeness deals. I think radio people should have shoe deals. We should be able to go, oh, Shannon Salty Sweeney. Oh, yeah, she's an Air Jordan person or whatever.
I mean, there are people that have like Fabletics, I think, is something. It's like a workout clothing brand for women, and I've heard people around our offices have those deals.
See,
so I don't know why I can't get an Adidas, Nike, or Jordan.
See, and obviously we wouldn't get Tim Duncan or Dak Prescott money, but I might be able to. I should be able to get like a Converse Chuck Taylor's All Stars. I should get like $27. It's like, oh yeah, Chris has a shoe deal. He gets $27 to wear these Chuck Taylors.
Yeah, I'm not even asking for money. I'm just asking for shoes. I mean, I'm like, I keep mentioning it. I still have on my Adidas with a hole in the top of where my big toe is, because I am struggling to find another pair that I will accept.
Salespeople, are you listening?
And you know what Adidas stands for, Chris? You know it's an acronym.
I do not. Help me.
All day I dream about sex.
All day I dream about sex. I never knew that.
Whenever you see somebody, they're thinking about sex right there.
All day I dream about sex is Adidas. I have worn Adidas over the years. I've known about Adidas since I think the 70s.
No, I think it's sex.
I think it's
maybe.
Thank
I
you,
think
Shannon.
the latter might be able. It could qualify.
Yeah,
and it also stands for other things but I can't say it on the radio.
Wow, yeah, some very lewd things, I imagine. Very, very funny. Wow. Speaking of Germans, Shannon, we speculated about NBA 2K, and we'll get into this more. A guy who covers the professional NBA 2K league out of New York City, Jeff Garcia, going to join us to talk about this and NBA Finals, Olympics, and more. But you were reading tea leaves that the big German Dirk Nowitzki would be one of the guys on the NBA 2K cover, or one of them that was released yesterday. But a little bit of a shocker. A lot of us thought the active NBA athlete would be Kevin Durant, and as we predicted, minutes after we went off the air yesterday, the news broke. You sent me a text. I heard about it from you first. But who's the big NBA 2K cover man moving forward?
So on your regular old NBA 2K, the one that people like myself who just want the base game, they don't need all the fuss or extras, you're going to get a copy with Luka Doncic on the cover. And I think that's pretty fantastic. When we were talking to Bill yesterday, he said, I'd love to see Chris Paul, but he's kind of at the end of his career. They usually put somebody on there who's seen as the future,
Yeah.
the guy to watch. And I think Luka certainly fits the bill for that. Maybe not his team, but he does. And so I'm excited because I think Zion is on the current one on 2K21,
which makes sense.
So therefore, he give him some time before he reappears on that cover. But we did nail it with our other guesses there. I mean, on one cover, which I'm sure is going to be the more expensive version of the game, you've got Dirk, you've got KD, and you have Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Woo!
So a little bit of the way pass, recent past, and current players. And then, of course, Candace Parker getting her very own cover. I don't know if she's going to maybe she's like an alternate version of the Luka, and so they'd be the same value-wise, but it's pretty awesome. She makes history of her very own by being the first WNBA player and female to grace the cover of NBA 2K Sports. And I love the design of the covers too. They're pretty with that kind of graffiti look. I mean, they almost look like posters like that you'd want to print and hang up on your wall. But they I mentioned I usually wait for this game to drop in half by the price, and I don't know, now that Luka's on the cover, your girl might have to get a first dish.
The power of Luka. Very, very cool. And we'll dive more into NBA 2K, all sides of this story in about a half an hour, just after 7 with Jeff Garcia. Also later in the show, Tanner Carlson. And we did do our British Open fantasy draft. British Open already underway because it's on the other side of the Atlantic. We'll update the first round, which is already going right now. She's Shannon Salty Sweeney, Dave Ayler, your soundscape stylist. Coming up, your high five play of the day. In about an hour, the Salty Shakedown, sports history, sports birthdays, and a ton of news in the world of sports that we are all over. With you till 9, it's the Chris Duel Show. Yeah, Tracy, it's ugly for Richard Sherman. And Tracy, as I mentioned earlier, and Shannon addressed this yesterday, the audio, for whatever the reason, coming from Shannon's studio, sometimes a little lower. But again, these mics are calibrated for radio, and for whatever the reason, we got some issues on the video feed. So we highly recommend, especially if you've got multiple devices nearby, the iHeartRadio app. You can get it on your phone. You can get it on your Amazon Echo, your Google device, your PC, if you got that, your tablet. So I realize the sync might be a little different, but sound is crystal clear on the iHeartRadio app. It is a throwback Thursday, so San Antonio Toros. Very funny. I saw, there it is. I'm hearing that, and I just want to make sure that's not over the air. Cool. Yeah, and again, at 2:17, if there's not an F-bomb, and I don't think there is, we'll probably play the whole thing, but we need to check it. Thanks, man. Dave is listening to the Richard Sherman's wife's 911 call. All right, I'm going to grab some coffee. I'll be back in just a few. Good morning to everybody on Facebook. I'll say hi to everybody here in a moment. Yeah, Tracy, that app sounds really good. Anyway, Throwback Thursday, Toros and Beatles. Thank you. The Beatles. John, Paul, George, Ringo. Let's not forget Pete Best. And a man known as the fifth Beatle to a lot of people, Billy Preston. great Billy Preston. Nothing from nothing leaves nothing. You got to have something if you want to be with me, sang the great Billy Preston. The late, great Billy Preston. Woo! So let probably 7 o'clock half hour. That way we'll tease it in this one. So yeah. Oh, but whoa. No, we got Jeff Garcia, and I'm not sure. So go ahead. You said something? Oh, okay. Cool. Thanks. Yeah, we may get to it here. We'll see. Yeah, because I would hate to, if for some reason we didn't get it in at 7, and then 7:30 we've got the 3 items, and then we got Tanner at 8. So yeah, we'll do it here, and then possibly even do it again at 8:35. We'll see how we feel. Hector Gomez, welcome. Hector Gomez, Luisa. Okay, thanks. Yeah, I think I saw 2:17 originally. Okay. Okay, I'll try to get to it quickly. That way we'll hopefully have time. I think I'll tease it. That way I want to let people know it's coming. So Tracy, I did not remember that Sonny Detmer, who, as you know, passed away recently, was a wide receiver for the Toros. Steve Duraco, who was either in here or was here earlier, he and I went to a lot of Toros games back in the day. I can name a lot of Toros. Defensive back Alfredo Avila, defensive back J.V. Stokes, quarterback Sal Olivas, quarterback Luz Pedraza, tight end number 81 Roger Gill. I was a big San Antonio Toros fan as a kid. And I'll never forget 1974, an exhibition game at Northside Stadium, the San Antonio Toros versus the Houston Oilers rookies. And damn it, I think the Houston Oilers rookies won that game. But that was cool. To go to a game and watch your hometown semi-pro team taking on the Oiler. I mean, Oiler uniforms, Oiler helmets. So, all right, we got John Williams, Jerry Lauder, who has done stand-up comedy with me at River Center Comedy Club just a few years ago. Like what, Jerry, if you're still here, 1995? Jeez. John Paul Albert, Jason Garcia, honk, 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 honk. This bumper sticker, I've had this for years. There was a show on UPN called Everybody Hates Chris. So these were promotional bumper stickers that I thought were appropriate. Let's see. Ralph Balderas. Good morning, Ralph. Jason Garcia, as I mentioned. Anthony Del Toro. Anthony, if the Toros were still around, you could change your name to Anthony Del Toros. Just during football season, you could add an S. And I still think if we ever get an NFL franchise, the Toros is up there, I think, is a great name. And there you go, Jerry. That was fun. God, and that was a fun class. Eddie Gosling was in that class. I did many years ago, I did a stand-up comedy workshop that a lot of Dee McNary was in that. The guy who went on to the most fame, Eddie Gosling, became a national touring comedian. And I don't know if that show is still on, but Eddie most recently was the executive producer of Tosh.0 with Daniel Tosh on Comedy Central. David Valles says, Ole Toros. You know, that's what we would yell. Ole! The public address announcer would go, Ole Toros! And we'd all go, Ole! Ole Toros! Yeah, I love Tracy Bogart. I love the name Toros. And anyway, they had this logo. You can go find it if you look hard enough on the internet. It's like it's a bull, a Toro bull, standing on his hind legs, throwing a football with SA on his chest. Very nice. The owner was Henry Height, owner of the Toros. Was very, and we're coming back, but Alfredo Avila, defensive back, lived in our neighborhood. We thought that was cool. We'd see him out mowing the lawn. Welcome back. So much going on in the world of sports. Some of it good, some of it bad. We'll get into all of it. It's the Chris Duel Show with Shannon Salty Sweeney. In fact, speaking of the bad, Richard Sherman, now a free agent defensive back, most recently with the San Francisco 49ers, made his claim to fame. And I think he's a Hall of Famer ultimately with the Seattle Seahawks in the Legion of Boom out of Stanford University. So as a USC guy, I hated Richard Sherman because he was very, very good at Stanford. Wreaked a little havoc on my beloved Trojans. Felony burglary, domestic violence, still in people telling us he's still incarcerated. So we do have that 911 tape, which I think is very compelling. The 911 audio of Richard Sherman's wife calling the police dispatcher. So we will play that for you perhaps this half hour in just a few minutes if we get to it. And I think we'll certainly make that effort to get to it. But before that, what we love to do at this time of day is give somebody a high five. And as we bring you, the negative news, let's bring you some positive news. It is time for our high five play of the day, brought to you by High Five, which is perfect, isn't it? High Five, 2 locations in the Austin area. When you go look around, you might see Shannon Salty Sweeney there wielding an axe. And no, she's not there to threaten you unless you really upset her. which is hard to do. But she axe throwing is one of the fun things at High Five. Axe throwing, laser tag, great beverages, drink specials, big screen TVs everywhere so you can watch sports, great food specials. If you ever want more information on High Five, just talk to Shannon because she goes there a lot. It is time, Shannon, for our High Five play of the day. Who is most deserving of our high five on this Thursday morning?
Well, the Bucks have clawed their way back into these NBA Finals, now tying the series up 2-2 after last night's win. So we've got to give a high five to a man who made the difference on the court. And the night when the Suns actually owned the Bucks in blocks, okay, it was a 9-3 difference. Giannis ended up having the block of the night over DeAndre Ayton of the Suns. It was an oop attempt. I believe Chris Paul tossed it up, and Giannis, being otherworldly, just did his thing, even at an awkward angle, and just I know we posterize people when we dunk on them, but blocks I think should also be on plenty of posters, especially when it's one like this in such a crunch game. And we actually have some reaction from Giannis when he was asked about this block last night.
Can you send me through the block?
Well, just a hustle play. I thought I'm gonna get dunked on, to be honest with you. But going down the stretch, just do whatever it takes to win the game. Just put yourself in a position that can win the game. And I saw the play coming. I saw that Chris Paul was throwing the ball. So I just gonna jump vertical, towards the rim. Hopefully, I can, be there in time. And I was there in time, and was able to get a good block and go down, get to the point. So it was a great hustle.
If you heard that in the beginning, he said he thought he was going to get dunked on. Kids, that's called effort. Okay? Even when you don't think you can do it, even though you might think it's not possible, you think you're going to get dunked on. Look what that man turned around and did last night. And I have to give him another high five for this, because not just for this dunk, but he left the first quarter of the game kind of unexpectedly. No one really made a fuss about it, but it was pretty odd. And then he ended up returning, obviously, to go on and get that incredible dunk later in the game. But he was asked about why he left the court, and being the young man and honest man that he is, he kept it real.
Yeah, honest, this was the second game in a row he went out early in the first quarter. I'm just curious what was going on there.
What how you guys say politely? I want to take a tinkle. Yeah. I went to take a tinkle and came back. Yeah. That's it. That's polite, right? Tinkle is polite. Both games. I went to take a tinkle and went back.
It happens to the best of us, right?
Yes.
We're in a situation we should probably be there for, but when you gotta go, you gotta go. And he came back, so no biggie. They went on to win the game, no biggie. It's not like he left. The Suns went on a run.
Wow.
And we now have to blame. I mean, now this is just a fun little Giannis thing, and I'm sure will become a joke anytime he steps off the floor. Oh, I wonder if he has to go to the bathroom. But a double high five to Giannis Antetokounmpo today and his Bucks team, tying up the series at 2-2.
Outstanding high five play of the day. And I got a feeling, I agree, Shannon, that's going to become a thing. I have to take a tinkle. And how can you not love Giannis? Somebody said this. I heard this week, and it's true. How do you don't dislike either one of these teams in the NBA Finals? There's so many people to like on the Phoenix Suns and on the Milwaukee Bucks. Usually in a matchup in a championship, there's one team you really hate. For me, a lot of times it was the Golden State Warriors. Some people hate LeBron. Sure. But there's nobody to hate here. And just listening to Giannis there, Shannon, what strikes me, here he is speaking English. It's at least his third language. I saw a documentary on him when he came to Greece from Nigeria as a kid, and his parents were refugees. He didn't speak Greek. I mean, he spoke the native tongue in Nigeria, whatever that is. And I don't know specifically. I'm sure there's people listening who could tell us. But he had to learn the language when his family went to Greece. And then obviously he didn't speak English when he came to the United States. And so there he is, speaking in another language. And then not only that, but having to, when asked that question, come up with, okay, what is the euphemism I need to use here for going to the bathroom? And he said,
specifically the polite way, he said.
Yeah.
He's the polite one.
That is so cool.
I love it. It just makes me smile.
I think we have a new drop, Dave Ayler, for whenever you or I or Shannon has to step away from the microphone for a while. So it happens. It happens. All right. Let's dive into this. It's maybe the big sports story off the court or the field of play. And Shannon and I were talking about it at the top of the show, all the more mind-blowing because Richard Sherman, defensive back, most recently with the 49ers, before that, Super Bowl ring, couple of Super Bowl appearances with the Seattle Seahawks with the Legion of Boom. He's the vice president of the NFL Players Association. As we speak, he's behind bars. He's going to appear before a judge later this morning. Among the other charges are felony burglary, domestic violence. I feel a little weird playing a 911 call because, you realize that someone is in distress. In this case, it's the wife of Richard Sherman calling 911. So on a certain level, it's a bit of an invasion of privacy in one of the most difficult moments for a person. Obviously, Richard Sherman's wife must have been terrified, thinking she needs to call the police. And listen closely, at one point in this 911 call, I mean, there's been so many awful shootings of black men when police are called. And one of the things she says to the 911 dispatcher is, please tell the police not to shoot him. He's, please don't shoot him. And then there's also, Shannon, listen closely, the 911 dispatcher, there's some criticism out there saying she was not at all sensitive in this moment of high distress for Richard Sherman's wife. So let's listen in. This is about 24 hours old. This is Richard Sherman's wife calling 911. Here's the call.
911, what are you reporting?
I need officers to my house now. My husband is drunk and
What is the Stop. What's the address? Are there any weapons? Stop.
There's no gun. I'm saying there are no weapons, ma'am. There are no weapons.
You need to stop interrupting me so I can get the information I need to get officers expedited.
I need officers here now.
What's he doing that you think he's going to harm himself?
He's being aggressive. He has sent text messages. I took the keys out there in your car. He's trying to leave now in the house. He's being aggressive. He's wrestling with my uncle. He's threatening to kill himself. He has sent text messages to people saying he's going to hang himself. He's saying that if the police show up, so please don't shoot is what I'm asking.
Okay, wait. Say that again.
He says
if the police show up,
he said if the police show up, then he'll try to fight them. So they need to understand that he is.
Okay. Been physical with anybody there? You said he's trying to fight your uncle?
Yes, it has.
How has it been physical?
He just tried to fight him.
Okay, trying to fight somebody and actually being physical is two different things. How has it been physical?
It's a 2016 black Mercedes. Richard, please stop! Richard, please stop! Please stop!
That is a van, SUV?
It's just a black sedan Mercedes SUV.
Okay.
He's not going to be able to get out the gate. I cut it off.
What do you mean you cut it off?
I cut the gate. We live behind it. It's Richard Sherman. Like, ma'am, this is like a emergency. I need officers here
Listen
now.
to me. I'm handling this. You need to stop telling me that.
I'll tell you
He's
what.
not going to slow help down.
He's
I'm
not going
he's not going to slow help down.
Okay, well, what I need to know is that he
What's your name?
My name is Ashley Sherman.
Do you know what his date of birth is?
3/30/88.
Okay, slow down so I can understand you. What's the date of birth?
March 30th, 1988.
All right. My God, that's tough to listen to, Shannon. I just let's get your thoughts. Your reaction as you experience that 2 minutes and 17 seconds of 911 audio.
Well, just as a 911 conversation, forgetting that it's Richard Sherman for a minute. It is very awkward and hard to listen to. I believe that as 911 callers, they try to keep you on the line, right, just in case something happens, right, and whatnot. And so I think that may have played a bit of a strategy. And of course, those people, I mean, their jobs, I don't know how they do it, because when you're on that end, no one's ever calling a 911 person to be like, "Hey, I hope your day is going really well."
Yeah.
So who knows what other calls she had that day. It was a little tense, right? I mean, she did ask her multiple questions at once, and she was trying to answer, but she, there, both sides seemed to be at a high point. So that was very uncomfortable to listen to. And then I don't know on the 911 operator side how into football she is.
Yeah.
'Cause she ended up dropping Sherman's name, right? Saying, calling him Richard, and then saying, it's Richard Sherman. I think trying to get to the point across of like, he's an NFL player. He is a large human being. He is
Yeah.
a very athletic human being. He has the ability to do some harm here. Especially when I guess the 911 operator was trying to say, well, there's a difference between there's something physical going on and then there might be something physical going on. Um, but it is just disheartening again, and knowing that this conversation is happening because of some actions from Richard Sherman, a guy that we would never expect to be in this situation. It's all the more confusing.
Yeah, Shannon, there's so much to unpack here, and there's so many layers to everything surrounding this story. One of which, and we've had a lot of talk about it from athletes, and rightfully so, and from public figures. And I mentioned, Oprah and Prince Harry did a multi-part documentary, which is spectacular, on Apple Plus TV on mental health. And on one level, you and I think a lot of people are going, oh my God, this can't be happening in Richard Sherman's life. I mean, Stanford graduate, vice president of the NFL Players Association, incredibly accomplished, incredibly well-spoken guy. You hear about, I brought up Greg Hardy earlier. You hear about domestic violence or 911 calls or problems with the law, and you think about guys like Greg Hardy who are not very good human beings. But I think something for all of us to think about, Shannon, and you brought up earlier the fact, here's a guy in between jobs with a lot of uncertainty, maybe for the first time in his life, dating back to beyond Stanford and beyond high school. It's a football offseason, and football season is coming, and this guy doesn't have a place to play. And obviously, he probably has a big lifestyle with big expenses and big expectations. And she mentions in the 911 call he's drunk, so he was probably drinking. But Richard Sherman, at a point in his life when it looks like he's losing a lot of what he is proud of and has worked for in his life. I think before we judge too harshly, I think we all must say, how many of us, if we're in a moment where it looks like we're losing our livelihood, how well could we keep it together? I just think that's something to consider here.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I was just looking at the NFLPA's Twitter account. They put out that statement that they were aware that one of their leaders had gotten into some trouble and that they were looking into it. Then you go to their likes and you scroll down to 12 hours ago, and they liked a couple of tweets from current and former players who, Robert Griffin Jr., or the third, excuse me, saying, don't forget to take care of your mental health. Darrington Evans, a running back for Tennessee, mental health is real. Praying that if you see this tweet and struggle with mental health problems, that you get the help you need. So I think maybe just a very small window into what might be going on here.
My goodness. Yeah, that's big. We'll dive back into this coming up a little bit later in the show, and we'll talk NBA 2K. We'll talk NBA finals, and COVID strikes the men's basketball team for Team USA for the Olympics. We'll get into all of that with Jeff Garcia next. She's Shannon Salty Sweeney, Dave Ayler making the show go. It's the Chris Duel Show. Good morning, Beth Settle. Welcome in, Beth. You are up early. Everybody on Facebook Live is up early. right, let's see here. Foam Foot 420, welcome in. Let's see, first hour recap. A lot of Richard Sherman talk, little NBA Finals talk, Giannis talk, and we just played you. We just played you the 911 call from Richard Sherman's wife, which is powerful and disturbing and interesting. All right, I gonna grab a little more coffee because I need it. I need the caffeine. It's the wonder drug that works wonders. Caffeine, caffeine, caffeine. Eric Clapton should have done a song. Caffeine. Woo! 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 Jesse Martinez, welcome in. Yeah, Jesse, I thought the dispatcher could have been more caring. And as Shannon pointed out, though, it's a tough job, and God knows how many of these calls she has taken. But the dispatcher, to me, did not sound like someone who was good at putting a caller in distress at ease. I wasn't getting that vibe. Thank you, Foamfoot 420. Thanks. Did he call us or did you call him?
I called him. He goes, "Oh, I was just getting ready to call you."
Okay.
That's no big deal.
Yeah.
I call people.
Yeah, well, the reason we did that, we just had chronic problems trying to call him. There'd always be an issue, it seemed like. So we just said, all right, you call us, and if you don't get through, then we'll call you once the segment begins. Luisa Alanis. Luisa says the dispatcher aggravated the situation. Yeah, she did seem obviously over the years we've heard a lot of those 911 calls. So I would not rank this dispatcher as one of the best that I've heard. And again, part of your job description is to put a very distressed caller somewhat at ease to kind of get them to relax and think a little more clearly because they're obviously in a high stress mode. Here we come. Here we go. Jeff Garcia of Locked On Spurs joining us.
Now, Chris Duel.
Lots and lots going on in the sports world on a Throwback Thursday. It's the Chris Duel Show with Shannon Salty Sweeney. In a moment, we're going to talk with our good friend Jeff Garcia, who covers the Spurs and the NBA 2K for a couple of television stations in San Antonio. He operates both out of San Antonio and New York City. He spends a lot of his time in New York City covering NBA 2K, NBA, and more. We'll get with him in just a moment. But Shannon, the British Open, or as the Brits tend to call it, the Open, is underway. And before we update the early leaderboard, and because it is in Great Britain or Scotland or wherever the case may be, obviously, given the time zones there, it's later in the day there than it is here in the States. So they started playing very early our time. But what might even be bigger than that, Shannon, is our show Fantasy Golf Draft, which took place yesterday between you, me, Tanner Carlson, and golf guru Andy Everett.
And I am proud of us because we pulled it off. sir.
Woo!
4 of us in a 4-way text message chain. Drafted all of our players. I've got Rom, Spieth, and Cantlay. Andy's got Scheffler, Fleetwood, and Hatton. Tanner's got Koepka, McElroy, and Morikawa. And you, Chris, have Thomas, Oosthuizen, and Sink. And I'm not sure if everyone's teed off at this point. I know when I woke up this morning, Spieth was just getting going, and it wasn't looking great early. But so far, of all of our picks, Spieth is leading the way at 3 under, and he is through 13 holes this morning.
And that's good for you. And you are the defending champion in fantasy golf as we do these during the major tournaments.
Mm-hmm.
So you could win back-to-back championships. So
Yeah.
you would have to get a ring or a T-shirt that says back-to-back, and you'd have to.
I'm already back-to-back. Remember, I won.
Are you? So you're going for 3 in a row?
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm going for the overall championship season.
Yes, you see.
Group here.
I'm not expected to do anything in these because of the 4 of us, I know the least about golf. But Andy Everett, this has got to be embarrassing for Andy Everett. He's the golf guru. So we might have to call you the golf guru if you win this one, and Andy will be former golf guru.
You don't know it, but
Andy
I
Everett.
called him personally via text message all the time about it.
Good. Oh, good. And you should. Well, and here, and again, the big headline of the 12 golfers that you and I and Tanner and Andy drafted yesterday for the British Open. To me, the big headline is none of us, including me, I'm kind of a fan.
Right.
None of us took Bryson DeChambeau in this draft.
Who I believe by the numbers was like a top 10, maybe even top 5 favorite for this
Mm.
one.
He didn't make it into our top 12.
Right, because he just came off that huge win against Phil Mickelson and Tom Brady.
Oh,
And this whole new caddy situation, but he's not really a caddy. It's his first go at being caddy. Who knows if his motivation style will work?
and that's kind of what kept me away. I thought, all right, new caddy. You're not going to go win the British Open with a new caddy.
But wouldn't he love that storyline?
Yes. Yes, he would.
Be very Bryson of him.
All right, we will continue to track the British Open. We'll update it for you here in just a little bit. We'll update the leaderboard, and we'll talk more about it with Tanner Carlson in about an hour. But so much going on in basketball, not just on the court, but NBA 2K, a big day yesterday as they revealed the new cover/covers. Our good friend Jeff Garcia of the Locked On Spurs podcast, not only the lead digital reporter on the Spurs and the NBA for Fox 29 and News 4 San Antonio, but also covers NBA 2K very extensively. He's there for a lot of the professional tournaments and the NBA 2K League play. Jeff Garcia, how you doing this morning?
Good morning, Chris. Shannon, how y'all doing?
We're good. I must admit, Shannon and I a little surprised by the cover boy, the active NBA player cover boy of NBA 2K that was revealed yesterday. We were both thinking Kevin Durant, but it wasn't Kevin Durant.
Yeah, Luka Doncic got the nod. No, I guess we're kind of right. I mean, Durant got a cover. He's just mixed in with a couple other former players there, Dirk and Kareem. But all in all, not, you know, when I heard the news, I was not really surprised that Luka Doncic is the, you know, kind of like the golden boy, if you will, for the NBA, you know, exciting, dynamic. He does a lot of great stuff on the court, and that just brings a lot of attention to the sport. So with Doncic getting the nod, not too surprising, but, you know, the next big thing to wait for are the player ratings. If you thought that the cover was going to get a lot of attention, wait till the player ratings come out. That is when fans really get into an uproar. Why is so-and-so rated so high? Why is so-and-so rated so low? So that's going to be the next big thing. So keep an eye out for that.
Jeff, I've got a couple questions for you. Pretty simple. This is the first time hearing that you are so connected to NBA 2K, and I myself am an avid player. I'm not the best player, but I do sit down and kill a ton of time. Can you get me extra VC?
I get that question asked all the time. Maybe.
Okay, I'll take that. That's better than no. That's better than no. And go ahead.
No. I was saying, I get every year I get asked that, you know, because the NBA 2K League, you know, that is their official game they go with. So the copies go out early. The players themselves, the pro players, that is, they get the copies early. They'll text me and be like, you really want to know what Keldon Johnson's going to be rated next year? I'm like, do I want to know? And I brace myself for that. So, yeah, maybe, Shannon, maybe.
All right, I got it.
Lessons from me, Shannon, because you are the coach.
I got to ask, as the uninitiated, what does extra VC mean? I don't even know what that means.
It's
Virtual currency.
yeah. So if I want to get my players to speak Jordans in the game for him to wear in the game, I need virtual currency. Or if I want to up his attributes, if I've created my own character and I want him to get up, I think like 95 is as high as you can go.
Yeah, Chris, think about it like this: your virtual players are going to go shopping and they need money.
All right. Well, let me ask you, Jeff Garcia, as you have played the game, how have you used virtual currency? What any examples of ways that you have used it?
Like Shannon said, sneakers. Sneakers are kind of the big thing. You know, go get out the Jordan, the virtual Jordans. They got the usual different skins. Skins is just like just looks, if you will, for your character. So different jersey, different schemes, color schemes. That is, you can go retro jerseys. All these. It's a whole, like, literally, Chris. It's a whole other world. Like, once you dive in, Chris, I don't think you want to come out. Sucked into it easily. You know, the online competition is great. Shannon knows this. There's tons of trash talking.
Oh, I may come for the trash talking.
I have received many a message of people. I'm just waiting in line to play next, and people are like, "Get off the spot." I'm like, I could be a 10-year-old girl.
You're gonna have to have a real thick skin, Chris. You go in, especially in game. Forget about it. You know, it's just gonna be crazy. But no, covering the league since its early inception, I think year 2, to see it evolve into now, I mean, it's incredible. You know, it never was on TV. Now ESPN, other outlets are covering it. You have, they're getting more players are getting sponsorship deals now. Whenever I walk through Times Square, there are billboards of individual players. Actually, one from the Dallas team, the Mavs gaming, he has a billboard with sponsorship. So to see where this sport is evolving to the esports is just incredible. I think it was last year. I think it was right down the street from me in where the Mets play, Citi Field, in that area. Fortnite had this massive competition where I believe a teenager won over $1 million just by winning a tournament. So this esports has really been taking off. I always get asked this from some Spurs fans that also like the 2K. When are the Spurs going to get a franchise? When are the Spurs going to get a franchise? The closest they got was, I think, towards the end of year 2, from what I was told. I was there, Chris, Shannon, when the Spurs sent a contingent to New York City, to the arena, and I see them. I could see them where my press team did them. And so I asked the NBA, because the NBA PR, they run it. These guys sit next to me and go, "So that's who I think it is, right?" And they're like, "Yeah." Go kind of talk to them. They went, "No." I went, "Okay, never mind." But then ultimately they just decided to pull the plug on it, because these franchises are expensive. Because not only do you have to buy the franchise, you have to housing, food, travel, uniforms, health insurance. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. So, and these players can make upwards to triple figures a year. So remember those days, Shannon, where your parents said, "Hey, to put away the video games, like, it'll be good for you." Yeah, maybe not anymore.
I know it. I think it still astonishes people when they truly look at the gaming culture and the gaming landscape and just how much money and attention. Because I'll sit there and I'll watch 2K tournaments or a Call of Duty tournament from time to time. I just find it really interesting. I myself, as a casual player, learn a lot of tricks. Now, you mentioned the open world of 2K and how you've been covering it for so long. So I kind of wanted to talk to you about that, because they kind of made this transition a couple years ago that instead of just always sitting in a main menu, you are kind of in an open world. So now you have these options to go play on the beach, or go play on the cages, or go play 3-on-3 or 5-on-5 in the rec gyms. How has that changed guys who do play professionally? I mean, what's like the main, do they do the 3-on-3? Do they do the park? How has that evolved, that 2K culture?
As that world is opening up, what hasn't changed, I noticed, is the park. Everybody loves the park. Everybody gravitates to that. When I talk to the players during the season, off the record, they'll hint towards, hey, we're going to be rerunning the park. We privately run the park against some of the non-pros, the amateurs, just to really test our skills. So I know from the professional side, they really utilize those outside the game at the park, at the beach, and in the cage, all that stuff, to hone their skills. And I think it's evolved into that. I think it's a way where pro players and non-pro players can come together and just shoot the ball, shoot the virtual ball. And I think it's great because we live in a world now of distancing and remote, and you're working from home and everything. And I think this is part of the evolution of that. It's interesting to see what's going to happen with the league, though, the 2K League, because they opened up a brand new arena, Shannon. And let me tell you, there's one thing about seeing it on TV versus seeing it in person. Whole other experience. The arena used to be down the street from me out in New York City. It was just, 3 stops on a subway. It was so close. It was easy to access. They opened up a brand new facility in Manhattan now that has never been used. It's still just sitting there because of the pandemic, and they don't know when they're going to reopen it. But I've seen photos of it and got a peek inside.
I'll do the contest next.
I mean, it looks like half the AT&T Center. I mean, it's huge. And businesses pour money into this. You got Nestle, they're pouring money into the 2K League. You got, the video game, the NBA 2K game pours money into this. Players get controller deals. Not a joke. They get controller deals just for them to play with their controller, and when they're doing press conferences, they have it on them just like you would see in a sport conference. Giannis talks and he has a bottle of Gatorade in front of him. I mean, it's that elaborate. It's just like any other sport. And it's a shame that the casual fans look at this and they still think, it's just a bunch of kids playing. It's not true at all, Shannon. I've spoken to a financial advisor out of California who quit his triple-figure salary just to try out for the 2K League because he's just passionate about the game, and he got in. He went to the combines. He made it. I talked to an NYPD cop who gave up his badge just to go for the combines, and he made it. You have guys that are in their late 30s, early 40s, families and everything, but they have a passion for the game, and they'll give up everything just to go through the combine process to make it into the league to become a pro esports player. So this thing is very serious.
He is Jeff Garcia of the Locked On Spurs podcast. In a moment, I want to ask him a quick question about the Olympics, the U.S. Olympic team. But it's 7:20 right now, and Shannon and I do this at 6:20 and 7:20. And where you're listening, the radio station does this throughout the day, 12 times on the 20s. A shot for you to win $1,000. Somebody wins the money. It may as well be you. Here it is, the Grand in Your Hand cash contest.
Now, your chance to win $1,000. Text the nationwide keyword bank to 200-200. You'll get a confirmation text and info. Standard data and message rates apply in this nationwide contest. That's bank to 200-200.
Chris Duel Show, Shannon Salty Sweeney, of course, on board. And from New York City, we're talking to Jeff Garcia of the Locked On Spurs podcast. And as we mentioned, he extensively covers NBA 2K. We're going to shift from NBA 2K to basketball and Team USA and the Olympics. And Jeff, this story concerns me. Bradley Beal, we learn overnight, has entered the health and safety protocol. Translation, he has either contacted someone with COVID-19 or he has COVID-19. He just played in the most recent game against Argentina, and he played well. What worries me here, Jeff, is dude clearly had proximity with other players on that U.S. Olympic team and the coaching staff and Coach Greg Popovich. How concerned are you about a COVID outbreak for Team USA?
Very concerned. And it's not just Bradley Beal. A few weeks ago, the Team Select group, they had several players also get tested positive for the virus. So, it's very concerning. You knew something was up because when I contacted USAB, to say, hey, you're going to allow in-person media. They were like, no, it's going to be very, very, very few, and no, it's going to be all Zoom. So yeah, I mean, I think maybe they've been aware about any type of spike in Las Vegas or Nevada, but yeah, you got to be concerned. Popovich, good on him though, because after he's done with press conferences, you'll see him put back on his mask after he's done talking. So that's good. And you got to worry for Keldon Johnson as well. Hope he doesn't get it. But this is just a situation where they're seeing positive hits right now, and they're going to go to Japan, and where the Olympics are in shutdown, no fans are going to be allowed, or they're seeing a rise in the coronavirus. Very, very concerning. Hopefully, they all take care of themselves. Keep on putting that mask, and I think it should serve as a lesson to everybody who's listening in right now. This thing's not over, not by a long shot. You still got to do what you got to do to help everybody and yourself get better. But yeah, I mean, Team USA, they got to win, Chris. Finally, yay! Exhibition play, but yay, they got it off the back.
Well, and finally, Jeff Garcia, those two losses, Nigeria over the weekend and then to Australia, I mean, kind of mind-blowing, certainly for fans, but Coach Greg Popovich will tell you, and you were part of those Zoom conversations, the rest of the world is always getting better. These guys always play together. We're just assembling this Team USA, and three guys going to come who are currently playing in the NBA Finals as soon as the finals end. How confident are you, knowing what we now know, that Team USA, A, will win the gold medal, or B, medal? Are you worried that we don't win gold and that we don't medal at all?
No, I'm not too worried about the U.S. capturing gold. What I was not surprised by was that they lost. I know a lot of people were shocked because it's just Team Nigeria, then the back-to-back losses. But ahead of the Olympics, I remember on Locked On Spurs having a guest on, and same question, do you think they'll medal? I said, I think they'll medal. I think they'll get the gold medal, but I'm not going to be surprised if they pick up an L here and there. The game the international game is caught up to the NBA and the NBA level. Every single team has NBA level talent on their squad. And to a certain degree, yeah, Popovich is right. I think moving forward, they're not going to be blowouts, as we saw in the Dream Team 1, Dream Team 2, et cetera, et cetera. These games are going to be competitive. Like I said, I was not shocked they lost to Australia. Australia beat them a couple times ahead of that game. Not shocking at all. Patty Mills, he does his thing whenever he wears that Australia uniform. So it's interesting to see what's going to happen moving forward. The chemistry still needs to be worked on. Now you throw in the fact that you see a COVID hit, and you got to throw in the fact then that three other players are going to join them. That chemistry still could be the biggest hurdle right now moving forward. Popovich did say that Doug Collins, yes, the guy that beat him out for a roster spot back in the day for Team USA, spoke to the team out of Las Vegas to say how important it is for them to come together fast because of the fact that you got other teams that have been together for years. I had a chance to talk to the Team Australia coach, and interesting enough to say, he said that the players are telling him, it's almost vice versa here, how to run the team because they've been together the longest, and he's kind of the new guy on the team. So it's really interesting how to see these teams individually have come together ahead of Team USA. So once I think they get that hurdle over and they get comfortable with one another, I think they'll be fine. My only concern on the roster right now is a point guard. I mean, do they really have a true point guard? We'll see once Drew Holiday joins them.
Jeff Garcia, a great follow on Twitter at Jeff G Spurs Zone, always putting out tons of content on the NBA Finals, NBA 2K, Spurs, and more. Jeff Garcia, always outstanding, sir. Thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Chris. Shannon, talk to you later.
All right. Thanks so much, Jeff Garcia. Coming up, Shannon, in addition to the salty shakedown, sports history and sports birthdays, you may be a little saltier and because you got some varmint activity going on in your attic. You're going to have to tell us about that coming up.
I'm not even paying rent.
Exactly. You need to charge these varmints. Yeah. And if you can guess, what kind of varmints are invading Shannon's home We'll find out here in just a few minutes. She is Shannon Salty Sweeney, her salty shakedown moments away. Dave Ayler making the show go. Tanner Carlson, who is part of our British Open fantasy golf competition, joining me and Andy Everett trying to stop the juggernaut that is Shannon Salty Sweeney, looking for her third consecutive title. We'll get into that and Dallas Cowboys, NFL, and more with Tanner Carlson just after 8 o'clock. We are with you till 9. Lots coming at you on the Chris Duel Show. Foamfoot 420, how did you know that? Are you reading Shannon's Twitter account?
Woo! 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 Woo!
One of my sports history items is a no-hitter by Nolan Ryan. So if you want to hit the "Don't be a knucklehead" drop, thank you. Yeah, Taro Kotani saying that COVID is blowing up again in Japan and Tokyo, which is awful. Sorry to hear that. Welcome back. Thanks for hanging out with us. It is the Chris Duel Show with Shannon Salty Sweeney. Coming up, we'll let you know what our poll question of the day is. It has to do with the NBA Finals, which are now tied at 2-2. There are only 4 possible outcomes remaining, and we walk you through those and let you choose which of those 4 outcomes will happen in the NBA Finals. We'll get into that and a whole lot more. British Open underway. First round of the British Open underway. We'll update the leaderboard in the British Open. We'll find out what varmints are staying rent-free in Shannon's attic. Might make her a little saltier for her salty shakedown, which is moments away after this day in sports history and sports birthdays. In fact, let's start it with this day in sports history. July 15th, the Ides of July, 1876. It was the first official no-hitter in baseball. George Bradley of the St. Louis Brown Stockings threw a no-hitter against the Hartford Dark Blues. 2-0 was the final score. And I think Dark Blues is about the Sox Hartford. What was the deal with Sox back in the 1800s? Oh, we're the St. Louis Brown Stockings. We're taking on the Hartford Dark Blues. And we hope someday to play the Cincinnati Red Stockings. Wow. Luckily, we've gotten more creative about team names.
That is a good question, though.
It's so weird. Yeah. What was your deal? What was your fetish with Sox baseball players?
And socks are pretty cheap to buy, I guess. And so
Yeah.
your uniform, maybe that's how they differentiated.
That could be. Yes. I think you nailed it. They probably had different mishmash of, shirts because they didn't have uniforms or jerseys yet. But it's like, all right, everybody.
Even then, they couldn't put a mascot in front of it.
You would think. We're from Hartford. Everybody wear your dark blue socks. We're the Hartford Dark Blues. So weird. Maybe a Daniel Snyder and the Washington football team can come up with a special sock reference as their new. And you could have sock puppets as your mascots. I don't know. This day in 1961, the British Open. Your winner in 1961 at the Royal Birkdale Golf Club was Arnold Palmer. He wins the first of 2 consecutive Open championships. He won in 1961 by 1 stroke over Welshman Di Rees. Sorry, Di. On this day in 1973, speaking of no-hitters, on the anniversary of the first ever no-hitter in baseball, California Angels pitcher Nolan Ryan. That's right. He throws his second no-hitter ever against the Detroit Tigers. Angels beat the Tigers 6-0. Way to go, Nolan Ryan. And finally, on this day in 2019, just 2 years ago today, Tampa Bay Rays catcher Travis d'Arnaud, easy for me to pronounce, becomes the first player in Major League Baseball history to hit 3 homers while catching and batting leadoff. So he was the catcher and the leadoff batter for the Rays, and they needed his 3 home runs as the Rays beat the New York Yankees 5-4. Anybody who beats the New York Yankees is a friend of mine. That's this day in sports history. Time for sports birthdays. I've only got 3 of them. Born on this day in 1935, NFL defensive lineman and actor Alex Karras was born in Gary, Indiana. Alex Karras played in the Mel Brooks movie Blazing Saddles, where he punched out a horse. I'm assuming that no animal was harmed when Alex Karras punched out the horse, but he hits a horse in the face and the horse goes down. Nothing to laugh at. I'm just saying. But it was a comedy. Blazing Saddles is a classic if you ever get a chance. Born on this day in 1960, not exactly an athlete, but she was on the cover of Sports Illustrated. Supermodel Kim Alexis, who was also an actress. She was on the cover of the Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue, born in 1960. That'll make her 61 today. She was born in Lockport, New York. And finally, a happy birthday to the Dame. Not a woman. Damian Lillard, born on this day in 1990. I guess that makes him 31 years old today. Damian Lillard, born in Oakland, California. I did not know that. Of the Portland Trail Blazers. Happy birthday, Damian Lillard, Kim Alexis, and Alex Karras. By the way, Alex Karras died in 2012. Thanks for bringing me down. That is your sports birthdays and this day in sports history. And now, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, get ready. Here it is, your Throwback Thursday edition of Shannon's Salty Shakedown.
Well, let's keep it with the throwback theme and talk some Reggie Bush, because he says, after all these years, I'm finally ready to tell my story. Reggie, it seems like now is just the most convenient time for you to tell your story, as your plea to the Heisman board did not go through. They don't plan on reinstating all of your records, and they do not plan on giving you back the Heisman Trophy. So Reggie Bush is teaming up with the group behind the Oscar-winning Dear Basketball. Of course, Kobe Bryant was also involved with that. And it will provide a quote-unquote fresh look at the USC football scandal and Reggie Bush's involvements. Chris, this sounds less like a documentary that we would typically get about someone and more like a marketing / campaign for him to have whatever he's lost restored. If anything, I think he will get a lot of supporters from this, and then I think it'll make people put their feet and dig in the dirt that much more to go against him getting any of this back. But as a USC alum yourself, a Trojan through and through,
yes,
I've got to feel you have to be a little excited to hear that there will be a Reggie Bush documentary coming, and coming specifically from people who are Oscar winners already.
That's kind of cool. I do agree with you. It's probably a propaganda video trying to make Reggie look better and further his cause to try to get his Heisman Trophy back and his records reinstated. I got mixed emotions about Reggie Bush as a USC fan and alum. It was fun to watch his career and watch him lead USC first to a national championship against Oklahoma, 55-17 in the national championship game. Dylan Emery, Andy Everett, and you Sooner partisans. Of course, that win and many other wins were vacated because of Reggie Bush and his cheating. And then, of course, he led USC to one of the greatest games ever. The greatest game ever in college football history, the Rose Bowl with the Longhorns win. And on that USC sideline, along with Reggie, watching Vince Young score the winning touchdown, one offensive coordinator, Steve Sarkisian. I'm just saying, who knew someday he'd be the Longhorns head coach, Shannon.
I do believe we should hear from Steve today at
Whoa!
12 Media Days.
Whoa!
That'll be something to look forward to. And
Hook
this
'em!
Reggie Bush documentary, I guess. Not sure what he's going to tell us that he hasn't already said in a Notes app tweet as of late. All right, moving on, because again, 9 days to the official start of the Olympics when we will have the ceremony. And we've known what the Team USA will be sporting, right? They're going to be donning what Ralph Lauren describes as a classic American look. But the flag bearers, they typically wear something different, right? It helps them stand apart. It helps, people say this is where the flag is. Although the official flag bearers for Team USA have yet to be announced, it was revealed yesterday that they will be wearing a special Ralph Lauren white denim jacket with what has been now they're naming it RL Cooling, so Ralph Lauren Cooling. Basically, it's got a self-regulatory personal temperature device that is battery powered, that when they turn it on, so they can get cool air blown on their neck. Now, they in 2018 at the last Olympics, of course, the Winter Olympics, Ralph Lauren did a similar thing, but it was with heating elements. So now we're in the Summer Olympics. They're going to give them these jackets that'll cool them down. Now, you may be wondering, well, why just the flag bearers? Why not the rest of the team? The rest of the squad will be getting these jackets, but only after the opening ceremony.
Huh.
Which, okay, that's cool that they still get one, but you figure that that's going to be the hottest part, right? It's hours long. You're standing in a hot, sweaty tunnel before you even get to go out into the actual heat, and then you're just standing some more. I understand the flag bearers, they need to be set apart. They have the duty and the privilege to hold those flags, and that is probably an extra way to start your sweat going. But I would be begging for these jackets to be available to me during the ceremony, wouldn't you, Chris?
Absolutely. Yes. And I mean, I hope, as you describe how hot it's got to be waiting in the tunnel, you spend hours waiting to march in the opening ceremonies. I would hope that Ralph Lauren and Team USA did everything they could to design fabrics that are not going to overheat these athletes in opening ceremonies. It's a little scary, actually.
Also interesting that it is the Summer Games, and they were like, you know what would go great here? A denim jacket.
A denim jacket for the Summer
Let's
Games.
go with the jacket.
God.
We'll help you out, though. We will put air conditioning in it, but we're going to make you wear a jacket.
Wow.
I don't know. Interesting stuff, but I'll be excited to see it, and then I'll be excited to see if it actually works, if it does its job, and hopefully like nothing catches on fire from this battery operated pack that happens to be within. None of the heating uniforms caught on fire that we know of, so hopefully they have the same experience with these cooling jackets. And keeping with the Olympic theme, we haven't heard from Scottie Pippen in almost like 2 weeks. I mean, he was on one, and he would not get off that train. Well, he's back in the news as part of this Airbnb and Olympic partnership. You can go on Airbnb right now, and there are over 200 Olympian and Paralympian bookable experiences. Scottie Pippen is one of them, available for one night only on August 2nd, 4th, or 6th for just $92 to commemorate his 1992 Olympic gold medal victory. You can stay in his Chicago mansion.
Whoa!
It includes, of course, his personal basketball court, his own theater room where they say, here, this is where you will watch the Olympic Games as you're staying in Scottie Pippen's home. And then he will virtually and personally meet and greet you upon your arrival virtually. For $92 a night, this doesn't sound bad, especially if you're in Chicago. I'm sure it's a hot ticket to get. But after all he's done in the last couple weeks, is there going to be free bourbon there? That could be supplied. I mean,
Ye-
that'd be a great opportunity for you to push that on people who maybe wouldn't have bought it.
That's a great idea.
And, would you be willing? Do you think they're going to be Chicago residents there that get that $92, or are there going to be people willing to pay $500 to travel there because it's only $92 for one night in Scottie Pippen's home?
If you're a fan, it's a great experience. And Shannon, as you know, that Bulls team has, and even more now after Michael Jordan's documentary, The Last Dance, there are international fans. So, I mean, I imagine, and granted, and Scottie Pippen has been a knucklehead lately in the media, but, you know, I think of if this were Tim Duncan's house for one night, or Tony Parker's house, which we've seen in a documentary for one night. You know, our good friend, and he joins us on the live video stream a lot, Taro Kotani from Tokyo. Taro would probably, if you're a fan of the Bulls or Scottie Pippen in the same way Taro is a Spurs fan, if this were Duncan or Manu or Tony Parker's house, I'll bet you he would travel from Japan to stay for a night. So yeah, I think it's fascinating. So I guess for $92, there must be like a huge lottery that you get into to try to be the one who pays the $92 to stay overnight there.
I am not sure exactly how it works. I know Airbnb, typically when you register to stay at a place, that you have to basically fill out your profile of who's coming, and it's only from 2 to 4 people. So max 4 people for this giant mansion, one night only, $92. Sounds like a pretty good deal. It's in the beginning of August, so towards the end of the Olympics. And as I said, there are 200 of these opportunities available to the folks. So we'll have to see. Maybe there is a Spurs relation that someone could get that opportunity to do. I think it's a pretty cool promotion, and how brave of these Olympians and Paralympians to offer up their homes and services to strangers, whether or not they get vetted by Eric.
Yeah.
So there you have it. Today's Salty Shakedown.
Outstanding Salty Shakedown as always. And it makes you wonder, David Robinson was on the dream team. Could we stay at David Robinson's house? I would pay a lot more than $92 for that. Speaking of staying at houses, Shannon, apparently you've got some guests, some unwelcome guests who have joined you in your residence. What's going on there?
So I go to bed at about 8:30 every night, which has been sunset as we are in the summer months. And I've been noticing some noises like bumps and scurries, and I thought, you know what, the tree line, it's kind of close to my roof. It's probably just like a squirrel or something. Like we have tons of squirrels in the areas. They are always chasing each other. They're just running around, whatever. But it's been getting louder, and it's been becoming something that's more frequent. And it's even like my dog is starting to notice. And I texted my dad a couple weeks ago. I was like, I think there's something in my attic. He's like, you're fine. Text him. I called them on FaceTime the other night, and I'm like, do you not hear this? Do you not hear this? And because I'm on the phone, they can't hear it, but I'm also yelling, can you hear this? So I have him come out yesterday. He's a dad, so I had plenty of other dad jobs there for him. And one of his jobs was to go up into my attic and check things out. He gets in the attic, and the first thing we both notice is, there's a light coming in from the ceiling, and that's typically not supposed to be there. I have it's like a plastic air vent that has a hole in it, apparently. So he's like, if you have a critter, that's where they're coming from. And he said, where's the noise? And I said, it's in the worst place it could possibly be, because it's not only over my bedroom, it's like over where my head is in my bedroom.
Ooh.
So I have whatever this is just above me every night. And sure enough, we go over there, take the flashlight, and just little teeny tiny eyeballs looking back.
Wow.
And we couldn't decide if it was definitely 2, maybe 3, because we couldn't tell if it was 2 babies or a baby and a mama. And if it was 2 babies, then the mama was probably going to be coming back later. But it's terrifying, and I'm not happy to be in my house. It was one thing for me to have the thought that like it's just something running across my roof. It's another to now know that they're right above my head, and I have confirmation.
And they are what animal?
Raccoons.
Raccoons.
And I don't think they're cute.
No.
And sorry, PETA, but whatever way the person who comes to my house to fix this sees fit to get rid of them, by all means.
Now, have you, who's coming? Who's coming to address this issue?
So I live in an HOA community, so I think the roof, the way, like, I own the inside of my house, but the outside is their thing, and they got in from the hole in the ceiling. So I think they're working on scheduling someone to come out and handle that If not, I've got a guy. My guy Oscar, longtime family pest and insect guy.
Wow. Yeah, I would hope, and I mean, I don't know how this works. And again, you don't know if these animals might have rabies or something,
Right.
these raccoons. But it would be nice if you could, or if Oscar or whoever could trap them humanely and release them back into nature.
Yeah.
But gosh, that's a dilemma. It's a big. So how soon do you think this will be resolved?
I mean, I wish it was yesterday, seeing as I have really had a really hard time sleeping last night. I don't know. Hopefully soon. Hopefully there's at least traps or something hopefully something gets going here. Like the hole is fixed and then traps are put into place and then hopefully I don't know. The only thing about traps is that they then have to bring them down through my house to get them out. And that's
And you have to see,
I don't wanna see it. Mm-mm.
On the live video feed, John Williams is suggesting the song Rocky Raccoon by the Beatles on the White Album. You may be hearing that. There is a Rocky Raccoon song by the Beatles, Shannon. I'm just saying.
I'm not naming these fur friends.
Woo. Yeah.
They're friends of mine.
There's Rocky. There's Polly. There's Adrian. Rocky Raccoon. All right. Coming up, Tanner Carlson trying to stop Shannon from winning 3 fantasy golf majors in a row. She's a juggernaut. It's unbelievable. Don't go anywhere. Chris Duel Show. All right. 8 o'clock hour coming. Tanner Carlson will join us in studio. Not only do I drink coffee, I drink iced tea. I killed a bottle of HEB Texas TX, but I got more. When I run out of iced tea, I will just buy more, baby. HEB is like $2.49 for how many ounces? 89 ounces. That ain't bad. It's a lot less than coffee at Starbucks. $2.89 for your iced tea. It's a bargain. Woo! headphones for your phone. Got them. Cool. We got British Open. We got the draft. Anything else that is on your radar? Richard Sherman. I guess he won't be a Cowboy.
Yeah. We can touch on Sherman a little bit.
Yeah, we played. Have you heard the 911 call? We played that. It's pretty powerful.
I don't know. I just feel like he had to have been on something.
Yeah. Well, she says he's drunk.
Yeah.
You know, and some people, I've known a few people over the years who become belligerent when they drink.
It's absurd.
Yeah.
And I get it.
You know, I become goofy and go to sleep pretty much.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever been angry while drunk.
No.
Now I've felt invincible.
Yeah.
You know, a couple tequila shots, I feel like I can run through a wall.
Yeah.
Nothing can stop me, but not like angry.
Right.
You know. But it's a weird thing, and I was telling JC, I said, I think he would probably have been near the top of the list of one of the last people I would have expected.
Me too. Yeah, Stanford, vice president of the NFLPA. I agree. But you think about what struck me, this is probably the first mid-July of his life that his football career was in doubt. You know, he doesn't have a place. I mean, middle school, high school, Stanford.
Right. And I know he's the one, he represents him.
True, yeah.
He doesn't have an agent.
Yeah.
So,
wow.
My thing is, you know, is this the first time he hasn't had people asking him? And so
you're right.
Is he now having to go to people and ask
yeah.
him or whatever?
Yeah.
Maybe he's too prideful to even do that.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows?
Well, and the irony now, because of this now, my God, I mean, you've got a minimum conduct policy suspension coming. You know, maybe 4 games, you know, depending on how this plays out.
Right.
It's crazy. So, and I really wanted him for the Cowboys.
I thought he would be a great fit.
Just from a culture standpoint.
For young guys,
yeah.
A proven leader, a proven winner.
I felt that too.
Yeah, I think that's what was the biggest surprise to me is that he probably would have been near the top of the list of people I would have never guessed would have gotten into this kind of. And I was telling him it's hard to even say anything because you don't know the story, and it's not to say that he's in a position where he knows better to not ever do something to that extreme, and that it's never okay to hit somebody or whoever it is. But I said sometimes these family members, they take advantage of these guys, and they hold on to their stuff if it's some of his merchandise or whatever it is of his that he wants or whatever. Like you just don't know what triggered. What
that's a very good
happened,
point.
And behind the scenes, man, these family members, they'll take advantage of you and ask for money and all kind. And maybe he just got to a breaking point, or something, or like I said, I don't know that obviously, but
I mean, it makes sense.
Instances, especially with family members, man, you can lose your cool. I mean, it's easy to just lose your mind. You hear stories of all the time of family members taking advantage of these players for their money and stuff like that.
But it's interesting. What reminds me when you say this is the last guy I would have thought this would happen to. Completely different, obviously, but makes me think of OJ. When OJ happened, America loved OJ.
Yep.
OJ was funny. He was in the Naked Gun movies.
Likable.
We loved the Hertz Rent-A-Car commercial. We loved OJ. It was like, no way. What? He's violent toward his wife? There's no way.
Yeah.
This show. Chris Duel.
Thursday, a throwback Thursday, a throw forward Thursday. We're at mid-July right now, the Ides of July on July 15th. We're a week away from Dallas Cowboys training camp. So much to talk about in the NFL and the world of sports. It's the Chris Duel Show with Shannon Salty Sweeney. And while we've got all kinds of things going on the court, on the field, off the field, and on the greens, actually, on the other side of the world, the British Open first round is underway. And of course, when there's a major golf tournament, Shannon, Mr. Tanner Carlson, our soon-to-be former golf guru, Andy Everett, and I have a fantasy golf draft. We had that yesterday in studio. You can see him on the live video feed right now. Our good friend Tanner Carlson. And Tanner, Shannon is looking for her third consecutive fantasy golf championship.
And she's well on her way to doing it here early on Thursday.
Yeah, see, nothing is expected of me. Of the four, you, Shannon, Andy, and me, I'm supposed to come in last, and
Right.
I usually do. So I keep up my end of the bargain.
Hey,
but what I'm wondering,
we all have a role to play.
yes, but for Andy Everett, the golf guru who has played golf on some of these courses in Scotland that have been used for the British Open, you know, Andy Everett, who hosts a golf show. I got to believe for Shannon to be owning him like she does and continues. I think it's got it. We might have to over the weekend call to check on Andy Everett to make sure he's okay.
Yeah, and it's insane because there are some of these guys that are already at top, and it's a long tournament. Trust me, there's a lot more golf to be played. We're still very early on. Some of these guys haven't even teed off, but I don't want to kind of ruin anything, I guess, because I don't know who's recording what. And you know, because with it being this early, there's probably plenty of people got their, you know, TiVo. Is that still a thing? TiVo? DVR?
I do have a TiVo myself.
DVR set and recording the match and stuff. But yeah, there's still a lot of golf to be played. But no, you're right. I mean, it's impressive, though, that it seems as though every week Shannon has one guy of her three golfers that is on top of the leaderboard.
Well, and I'm Shannon, I'm looking at the leaderboard right now, and your boy Jordan Spieth is 5 under in first, but he's tied with Lewis, and I can't even Oosthuizen, who I drafted, right. And I see also tied for third Stuart Sink, another guy I drafted. Granted, it's very early. I'm sure I'll come in last, but at least for the moment, Shannon and Tanner, I can squawk a little. Two dudes that I drafted are
squawk while you can
are in the top 3 currently.
Squawk while you can.
So there's my squawking.
Yeah, I've got. So just to let everybody know, I've got Koepka, I've got Rory, and I've got Colin Morikawa. And Rory and Morikawa have yet to tee off today. So I'm sitting nice with Koepka. He's 2 under, 1 under. He was something along those lines when I walked in. So. But yeah, right now we've got a nice little race at the top with your guys and of course Spieth with Shannon over there. And
Andy Everett's guys nowhere to be found. Xander Schauffele, he had Tommy Fleetwood, and granted, some of these guys might not have even teed off yet. Right. And Andy also had Tyler Hatton. Who? Tyrell Hatton.
Of course. Yeah, when he threw that name out there, I was pretty shocked. I had never even heard of the guy.
I've never heard the name Tyrell Hatton before. Watch him win because Andy picked him.
Right.
But and Shannon, you revealed, I did not know this until this morning, you actually taunt Andy via text messages.
Joking.
Oh, I thought you were. Okay, I was loving that. I was like, oh my God. So not only is she beating Andy Everett. No. In fantasy golf, she taunts him.
That I beat down because I realize that in order to win, others must lose. So I thank you for participating in each of these events
and being a loser on my behalf.
Allowing me to be your victor.
I mean, she has a point though. Like you can't win anything if nobody plays against you. Yeah. So
true. But I'm serious though. Shannon, if you win this one, and we typically have Andy Everett on the show on Mondays. I will refer to him as our former golf guru. Andy Everett.
Well, I
And
still want
you will be the new golf.
lessons, so I don't know that I'll denounce some of that title because when it comes to playing golf, I'm sure he would kick my ass day in and day out.
Here's what if we were some big sports network, if we were some huge our headline would be, is Shannon the next golf dynasty?
Yes.
Like, are we looking at a dynasty here?
Yeah. Really
with-
sell it.
Yeah,
Really sell it.
yeah. We're really pushing the whole dynasty thing. Are we looking for a three-peat? Like, that's really what our headline, our main storyline would be.
Then when I lose, she's crumbling. It's all coming down.
Yeah. What's wrong?
Career.
What happened to Shannon? What happened to the demise of Shannon?
What went wrong? Well, and the other headline, not only would it be, is the Shannon dynasty upon us? You may have been the first to bring this up after our draft yesterday, Tanner. 12. We collectively we drafted 12 players. So in our minds, collectively, these are the top 12 players in the British Open. None of us drafted Mr.
Bryson DeChambeau. Or Dustin Johnson, who is the world's #1 golfer right now. So wow. I thought that was
what's wrong with us?
Two odd dynamics there that DJ or DeChambeau, neither of them were picked. I was at a point with my third pick where guys that I had wanted to take were already being taken, and so I was kind of losing options. And then I was thinking, all right, we're going to be overseas. We're going to be in Europe somewhere. Let's think of some overseas players that typically show up for big moments. And then Oosthuizen came to mind. Justin Rose came to mind. Fleetwood came to mind. And so these guys were kind of going through, and I was like, well, I guess I'll just settle on someone that I'm comfortable with Morikawa. But yeah, no, I mean, and Justin Rose, I believe he's playing very well right now. He was an option for me there, and you've got a lot of different flags next to names at the top of the leaderboard right now.
Going to be interesting. The British Open all weekend long. Shifting gears, Tanner, and Shannon and I played the 911 phone call earlier in the show. It's out there if you want to track it down. If you can listen to it on the podcast later. We did that in the first hour, just after 6:30 this morning, of Richard Sherman's wife calling 911. She says that he is drunk. She says that he wanted to fight her uncle. He has been charged with felony burglary, domestic violence. Our understanding, he's still in jail. He will appear before a judge today. The irony here, the huge irony, is that he's the vice president of the NFL Players Association. You walked in here into the studio, Tanner, a few moments ago before we went on the air, and you said he's the last person you would have expected to be making this kind of news. And Shannon and I've talked about, and I think his name came up with you earlier in the year, in the offseason. I wanted this guy to be a Dallas Cowboy, just given his been to the Super Bowl twice with Seattle, gone deep, and I think he was on that 49ers Super Bowl team 2 years ago that took on Kansas City and nearly won, led by 10 going into the fourth quarter. I thought he'd be a great culture guy for the defense and the secondary in the Cowboys locker room. But now it's unlikely he's going to be on any NFL team anytime soon.
And if he ever does get on another roster at some point, like I don't think it's this year. It would have to be until all of this stuff kind of, once the dust kind of settles and we know what the actual story is and what his actual future is going to be, what his future holds in terms of just legal standpoint. We're not going to see Richard Sherman really approach any type of team or any team approaching him for a roster spot. And then following that, suspensions. I mean, he's facing, what'd you say? At least.
I would think 4. NFL conduct policy. You get arrested. Games. There's domestic violence alleged.
Which we've seen many players, Zeke, other guys get 6 games for domestic
and let me underscore for anybody who may not know the story. From what we know so far, that domestic violence would be him wanting to fight his uncle or fighting his uncle. You think domestic violence and your first thought is, oh, did Richard Sherman attack his wife or his estranged wife? That doesn't seem to be the case at the moment.
Right. And you know, it's just kind of one of those things. And I was telling you about it, and I'm not sticking up for anybody who, you know, acts this way or lashes out and physically tries to harm somebody or forces his way into somebody else's home or whatever the case is. But I was telling you, I said, a lot of the time we only look at what the athlete did that was so bad. Oh, he got charged with domestic violence. This guy's a bad guy. I don't really think that Richard Sherman is a bad guy, but I think he did not act appropriate in this situation. And these situations are so hard to determine and sift through when it comes to family members, because a lot of these times these athletes are put in situations where family members take advantage of them, or they ask for money, or they are putting so much pressure on them to support them. And, maybe uncle's not working. I don't know. I'm just saying it could reach a boiling point with some of these guys. And Richard Sherman just found his breaking point and he lost it. And maybe he had too much to drink that night and things just got out of hand. And like I said, I'm not defending the way he acted or the way he treated the situation, but a lot of these times, these stories especially with family members, we have no idea behind the scenes what these players are going through with their family members, or if they're being taken advantage of in terms of their money or anything like that. And so, yeah, it's just it's a really kind of a unfortunate situation, because like I was telling you, this was probably the last person I thought would ever have his name connected to a charge like this or a news story like this.
It was crazy when we saw this appear yesterday. And Shannon, as I brought up to you earlier in the show, you look at Richard Sherman's life, and he's a man without a team in mid-July. I would assume for the first time in his life since he picked up a football and maybe played a little Pee Wee League flag football, maybe as a 6-year-old. I mean, this is a guy who was probably always the greatest athlete among his peers. Middle school, high school, Stanford University, Super Bowls with the Legion of Boom in Seattle. It's got to be just a very stressful time for him. First of all, just career-wise with all of this doubt. And then you mix in, we heard the 911 call. His wife said he was drunk. You mix in alcohol, family stress. There was something going on with the uncle. Just maybe a perfect storm for Richard Sherman to kind of lose it when this all came down.
I would, if there was ever a perfect storm, this would definitely be one. And an added pressure for him that not a lot of NFL players have is, people forget, since 2018, he's been his own agent. So he's responsible for making his own deals. And I can only imagine the extra stress that has on a guy, especially with where he is in his career, where he probably still believes, and at times he is an elite guy at that position and is worthy of every penny. But from an NFL's team's perspective, right, he is older. There are younger guys that they can get for cheaper and bring them up into that level. And okay, how many years, if we bring him on, do we want to pay him? Because he is going to come with a hefty price tag. There's a lot for them to weigh. And so for him having to stick up for himself, probably in a way that he never has before, and clearly no deal has been done at this point, I can only imagine him getting that direct feedback of, no, we don't want you, has to play a toll as well.
No, I completely agree. And most of the time it's the agents, right, that are going out, talking to these teams, promoting their players, getting their players' names out there, making phone calls, doing this, doing that, working and wheeling and dealing and trying to get something figured out in terms of pushing their player to get on a roster spot. Well, like Shannon said, he's the one that's doing that. So on top of everything else, he's trying to get his name out there. And who knows, this is probably the first time in his entire life where a team isn't asking him to sign with them. He's asking them to sign him.
Yeah.
And so that's probably the first time he's ever had to really kind of go through this whole, I promise you, I've still got this. I know I can still perform at a high level if you pay me, X amount of dollars.
Another irony that strikes me here, you think of that Seattle Seahawks Legion of Boom, which was that defense that was just a shutdown defense. And the biggest part of that Legion of Boom was the secondary. And to me, the two most recognizable names in that secondary were Earl Thomas and Richard Sherman.
Both linked to the Cowboys at some point.
Both coveted by fans like me and you as Cowboys fans. Earl Thomas, a Texas guy, now I believe resides in Austin. But both of those guys, things went really, really bad. Earl Thomas most recently with the Baltimore Ravens, and apparently his teammates rose up and told the coaches and management, we would like him gone. We don't want him on this team. We don't like how he's behaving among other teammates. And now this with Richard Sherman. And I told Shannon earlier, think about the difference a play makes. That one play on the goal line in the Super Bowl when Pete Carroll chooses to throw the football instead of run it in with beast mode. Most of us agree or expect the Seahawks would have beaten the Patriots, but they throw the ball, it gets intercepted on the one. You win back-to-back Super Bowls, and maybe everything's different for the Seahawks, for Earl Thomas, and for Richard Sherman. Maybe they're still there.
Yeah.
For all we know.
I think it's an interesting point that you make with both Earl Thomas and Richard Sherman kind of somewhat being linked to the Cowboys. And I think that in the past, I think the Cowboys, or at least Jerry Jones, is so trigger happy that he signs one of these guys and doesn't kind of let this stuff kind of play out. We've had a history of giving guys second chances, but typically what we'll see is not only the second chance guys, but we'll sign somebody like a Pac-Man Jones, a Greg Hardy, a Tank Johnson, whoever, insert name here.
Yeah.
And you'll see that. And then as soon as they sign with the Cowboys, they've got an arrest charge. Or as soon as they sign with the Cowboys, it's this. Or as soon as they sign with the Cowboys, it's that. So I kind of have to applaud the Cowboys and Jerry Jones for kind of not pursuing this, no matter how much pressure they've gotten from fans to pursue either Earl Thomas or Richard Sherman prior to these, situations that they've found themselves in. So, I mean, once upon a time, it was Jerry Jones, I'm going to sign this guy, and then they get in trouble. But now it's at least, hey, let's let these guys get in trouble and then we'll back off, and so you kind of save yourself a little bit that way.
But if Richard Sherman would have signed with the Cowboys, would this have happened? I don't think he would have felt this. He would have said, honey, I'm on America's team now. Everything's right with the world.
Right? Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
I'm speculating, of course.
That's one of the joys of training camp. And that's why NFL teams conduct their training camps the way they do. No outside noise. You're stuck inside of a dorm room. You're on a campus. You're stuck with the team. There's no going out. You're here with us, and there's nothing else you're doing about it. And so you can't go off and get in trouble somewhere else while you're in training camp. So the fact that this hasn't happened while training camp has started, I don't know if you change the outcome of this. You're still going to find yourself in that situation, in that location, doing those things.
All right, let's talk a little training camp while we're on it, because the Cowboys released a graphic yesterday for the countdown, the 1 week countdown to Oxnard. Well, they will be getting things underway, and they did a play on festivals as they are coming back in a huge way. Obviously, a big one out in that area is Coachella. So they created a graphic that says Campchella, and instead of the different days, they've got it broken down into offense, defense, and special teams and schedule. But something else they took from those typical posters you see for those kinds of concerts is the headliners, right, are always really big. Their names are really big. They're really easy to read. And then kind of lesser known acts, people born early in the day, much, much smaller, where you have to zoom in on the graphic. And they did that, right? So at the top of the offense, of course, Dak, Zeke, Amari Cooper. And then you go down to the bottom, and there's Malik Turner and TJ Baxter. They repeat it for all of the other sides of the ball here. And so when you see that, if you're a player for this team and you see that and you have to zoom in on your name, do you think, 53, how am I going to get my name? I need to move up how many spots on this list? I need to at least be a late afternoon Showtime guy and not gates opened, 10 people standing in the grass in front of me. It's kind of embarrassing, right?
Do you think that they're using that as kind of like an indicator of where they're at on the depth chart, like where they line up on the 80-man roster and so on and so forth as camp moves on, to see kind of like, oh, well, I'm way down here, unless that was just that's probably has nothing to do with the coaches or anything. It's probably just the graphic team and whatever nerdy kid that just graduated college, whatever college intern made that graphic for the Cowboys. And he was like, I've never heard of TJ Vash. I've never heard of Brennan Eagles. I'm going to throw them down at the bottom. Or that's probably more what happened than anything. But yeah, it might be a motivational factor. We might see some of those guys in the little tiny baby print. That might be one of the biggest names at Hard Knocks.
Yeah.
So,
well, and I'm looking at the defense. I'm looking at this Campchella poster that Shannon's talking about. Looking at the defense, your first two names, actually your first three, DeMarcus Lawrence, Leighton Vander Esch, and Jalen Smith. Then you've got Micah Parsons. And maybe that's appropriate because he's a rookie.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I like it. And I'm also looking at this poster, opening press conference with Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones and the coach. It's always must-see TV for Cowboy fans. That's on the 21st. So today's the 15th, while the first practice will be on the 22nd, a week from today. That Jerry Jones State of the Cowboys press conference, 10 a.m., 6 days from now on the 21st.
Less than a week away.
Are you feeling we're a week away from Cowboys and less than a week from the press conference? Are you feeling some extra? Is the heart beginning to palpitate a little bit for you?
I'm starting to fall into my Cowboys offseason trap of optimism and just excitement and ready to go for the season and Super Bowl champs. Here we come.
Yes.
I'm kind of in like, and I know every fan is feeling that at this point. We're just itching for football, and we're like, it's a new year. Anything could happen. We've got guys back. We're looking at a healthy Dak. We're looking at a healthy offensive line. Oh, last year McCarthy was dealing with Zoom meetings and stuff. He couldn't even talk to his players in person to coach them. This year is going to be different. So that's what I'm feeling. We got Randy Gregory coming in for his first full offseason. He's going to be a 10-sack guy, so it's like Michael Parsons is going to come in and take Jalen Smith out of the starting role, and our defense is just automatically going to be fixed and perfect, and it's going to be fine. We're going to have a top 10 defense, top 10 offense. So, yes, that is how I'm feeling. I am in the optimistic. I'm ready for training camp. I'm ready for football. I don't care really how irrational I sound. That's just how I'm feeling right now.
Very shortly, we're going to have to make predictions for the 17-game season.
Oh, yes.
And playoffs. And
I typically get my entire season done middle to the end of preseason, at least before the opening game on that Thursday night.
And we'll see if Shannon dominates those predictions like she does fantasy golf.
Will.
Tanner Carlson, a great follow on Twitter at Tanner Carlson 20. You want to follow him now so that when he does release his NFL picks, you'll be the first to get them.
The very first
on Twitter. Tanner Carlson, always outstanding, sir. Best of luck on your British Open fantasy draft. But at the moment, Shannon and I are looking pretty good.
Speed.
It'd be great if Andy came in last.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic.
If I came in first, because I suck at this. So that would be the big shocker. And then I would unseat Shannon. And
will that be
you're in first right now as Louis Statham has taken a -6.
Wow. I may just during the break start taunting Andy Everett via text.
Is this a 16 seed upsetting a 1 seed? Is that the equivalent?
It's like a 67 seed seeding the one. Yes.
Bubble
exactly. Yeah, bubble seed. Yeah. Right.
It's like it's like Reagan High School beating Duke in the tournament. Yeah, it's highly unlikely. Tanner, enjoy your weekend. The weekend's almost upon. It is. It's Thursday. We're starting the weekend. Enjoy your weekend.
All right, you too.
Coming up, lots more. We'll make sure we jump back in. Jay Cutler. We talked about him not long ago on this show. He's now saying he is having some early CTE symptoms. We'll get into that, and we'll talk more NBA Finals. It's 2-2. It's anybody's series now. We'll get into that and more with you till 9 on the Chris Duel Show. Thank you, sir.
Well, I'm out of here today, so y'all have a good
wow, all right.
A good weekend. I have a 4-day weekend.
That's right. So where's the Wichita? Okay.
So I'm gonna hit the road today, but
we'll have fun.
Yeah, should be a good time.
We'll keep an eye on your British Open golfers.
I actually had to call the groom out and was like, "Really, dude? You're gonna have your wedding weekend the same weekend as a major?" He was like, "You know what?" He goes, "You had yours in the middle of football season." I was like, "Yeah, but Texas was playing like K-State. Like it doesn't really count."
That's funny.
All right, man.
Have a great weekend. Good morning, Jose. Yeah, I know, Jose. I know the Brits and the purists call it the Open. However, I'm an ugly American, so I call it the British Open. But you are...
Gabriel Iglesias was doing all those shows at Tobin.
Yes.
All canceled. Testing positive for COVID.
Oh, you're kidding me. Did that just break? Is that brand new news?
Yeah.
Wow. We'll mention that on air. That's big. Thank you for that. Dave Ayler, I don't know if you could hear that. Gabriel Iglesias, the comedian, was doing a residency at the Tobin Center, and he had to cancel as he's tested positive for COVID. He went on Twitter this morning. I'm reading the story. He announced it on Twitter this morning, Dave Ayler. If you were on Twitter and followed Fluffy, you would have had that story before anybody.
It's also his birthday, so that sucks.
Yeah. I may have to follow Fluffy. I wasn't following at Fluffy Guy. He created his own hashtag. Hashtag Fluffy got COVID.
That's funny. I think his stand-up's pretty good.
I saw him like a gazillion years ago when I was doing stand-up. We had a thing called the Latino Laugh Festival, and he hadn't hit it big yet, but he came to San Antonio. So he was part of like, God, this was like 1997, 98, long time ago.
He was on Jay Leno's Garage.
Yeah.
Apparently he collects like VW buses.
Oh, that's funny.
He has like 20, 30 of them.
Wow.
Yeah, in a garage. And Jay goes, how'd you get into collecting VW buses? He goes, well, I don't have a cocaine habit.
That's funny. Busting open a new jug. Time to get into some more $2.49 TXT unsweet. I get the unsweet. Low carbs. I mean, bikini season is here. I gotta watch the weight. Yes. Jason, are you serious? Jason has lost 100 pounds. Wow. I'm just trying to lose 20, man, and I'm having a hard time. Gonna go eat a cake. Jason, how long did it take you to lose 100 pounds? I'm gonna guess 2 years, but I don't know. Luisa says unsweet tea means more tacos. Jose says Texas tea is great, but Long Island iced teas are awesome. Yes. I'd rather have that. Wow, I didn't know that. And that makes sense, Shannon, that he was going to film those appearances Yeah, the Tobin Center is a great venue, and since he was doing multiples, it would make sense that you'd film them and then edit the best ones.
Fortunately, I had tested positive for COVID-19. I made sure that I got tested by 2 different types of tests to confirm that it is in fact COVID, and both came back positive. I started showing some symptoms, and fortunately, it wasn't debilitating. I mean, I'm still able to talk. I just had some body aches, some chills. Clearly, COVID did something about it, bro. God damn. But other than that, I gotta find some filler somewhere. Other than that, I feel pretty good. My health is okay. I've been vaccinated, and I give credit.
Chris Duel Show with Shannon Salty Sweeney. Dave Ayler, your soundscape stylist. We are with you till 9. And Dave Ayler, you during the break broke some news to Shannon and to me from the world of entertainment and the world of comedy. COVID-19 affecting I would call him a major comedian. He's got a big national following, and he was doing a residency at the Tobin Center in San Antonio. Dave, what is the big breaking comedy entertainment news?
Well, Gabriel Fluffy Iglesias, he was doing, like you said, doing a residency at the Tobin, has tested positive for COVID-19.
So he is canceling. Gabriel Iglesias, a.k.a. Fluffy, has to cancel his Tobin Center shows.
All shows through Saturday. And apparently he was starting at the Mirage in Las Vegas on July 22nd. That may happen or not. We don't know yet. But definitely all the shows at the Tobin have been canceled.
Man, I'm sorry to hear that. But I will point this out, Dave Ayler. He first made the announcement on Twitter. So you would have had this story for us at the top of the show if you followed Fluffy on Twitter. I'm just saying.
I was found it on Facebook on WOAI's Facebook page during the break, which was perfect timing.
All right, I'm just
add it for you right during the break.
And he did
posted 6 hours ago on Twitter.
It's true.
And he has been vaccinated. He did say he has been vaccinated. He's a part of the new Space Jam movie.
Really?
So I wonder if maybe one of the several events they've been having for the release of this movie that he was around somebody who maybe wasn't vaccinated or did have COVID. And, I don't know. He didn't say where in the stage of vaccination he was.
Yeah.
But he also said he's feeling pretty good, that he's pretty asymptomatic. So that is a benefit, I would assume, of being vaccinated, is that if you do get it, you're better off.
Yes.
Perhaps not having.
Well, and I'll jump in on that point here in a second. I do want to point out that on his Twitter, and Gabriel Iglesias is on Twitter at Fluffy Guy, and he did a hashtag Fluffy Got COVID, which is kind of funny. He is a comedian. But a couple of things regarding what you just mentioned about vaccination, Shannon. I've been seeing these statistics out of multiple states, and of those who are dying from COVID-19 currently this summer, like in the month of June and in the month of July, depending on the state, I think like the state of Maryland, of those who have died from COVID, 100% of them are patients who were not vaccinated. In another state, I'm forgetting which one, of the deaths in the month of June, 99% of them are people who were not vaccinated. And sadly, a member of my family texted me this week, one of their close friends, who I had met a number of times. I knew this gentleman. He refused to get the vaccine, didn't believe in it, had heard bad things about it, refused to get it. He was hospitalized for COVID-19 and he has since passed away. So it's still out there. It's still deadly. In fact, this Delta variant, I read that it is 60% more contagious and it is more deadly than the Alpha variant, which was the first one out of Great Britain. So please take COVID-19 seriously. I am vaccinated. Shannon is vaccinated. Dave Ayler is vaccinated. The overwhelming medical evidence and science says you are more likely to live and not get it, or if you get it, have mild symptoms if you are vaccinated. So, we haven't talked about this a lot lately on this show, but maybe this is an opportunity to kind of underscore that.
Beautifully said.
All right. Moving back to sports. Jay Cutler, in an interview with People Magazine, Jay Cutler, the former NFL quarterback, he is wound up on our radar because of his reality show exploits. He's given an interview, Shannon, to People Magazine, where he says he's suffering from memory loss, and he has what he believes are early CTE symptoms. And he has told People Magazine, quote, it's going to catch up to me at some point. I'm just trying to delay it as much as possible. One of the things about Jay Cutler's NFL career with the Broncos, with the Bears, is he was sacked a whole bunch of times. The number of sacks that he has endured, therefore the hits and collisions as a quarterback and a player in the National Football League are pretty darn high. He believes it's coming. So this is kind of startling news for a player who not that long ago was playing in the National Football League.
I guess because CTE is still such a new conversation.
Yeah.
In regards to how long football has been a thing, that I guess on the bright side, if you were to say that, the fact that he is aware that it could be happening now rather than much late, because he's still a really young guy.
Yeah.
And it could be useful not only for him to find ways to combat it, but for others in the future. I mean, you mentioned he did. I mean, I don't know who he blames for that. I don't think you can blame the NFL. I think you have to blame your O-line. That's for sure.
Yeah, he's had a tough O-line throughout his career, which is now over. So, but yeah, I mean, there is, if anything, the fact that Jay Cutler is aware of it now, has concerns. Clearly, he's got a lot of resources. I mean, there's a lot of these NFL players who were not Jay Cutler and did not make these multi-million-dollar quarterback salaries, who now have to, that may be symptomatic, who have to find a way to try to address this with much less, fewer resources than Jay Cutler has. So hopefully Jay Cutler can seek medical treatment and try to offset this and be successful at it. And hopefully, as you mentioned, Shannon, and the weird thing about CTE, the only way you diagnose it now is after someone has died. They look at the brain. They open up the skull and they get brain tissue and they look at the brain. And they go, "Yep, this was CTE." So people can think they have it, but it's not officially a diagnosis yet until post-mortem after someone has died. So, but hopefully we learn more, and hopefully we find treatments and, maybe medications and things that can offset it and maybe cure it down the line.
Do you think with the more we learn about it and the more real it seems to some people, because I think there's a lot of people out there that are still like, nah, it's not really a threat or a thing. But when you think of the NFL, the average lifespan of a player is like 2.5 years, which doesn't qualify them for those pensions and that insurance later in life when they need it, when they start having these symptoms. And a lot of players some of them get knocked out just because they're not up to the standard they need to be, but there are a lot that go through concussion protocol one too many times and decide it's not worth it to possibly take one more hit because you don't know what that next hit is going to do to you. You know, how they help those guys out in the future, specifically the ones that are already out of the league who aren't getting those benefits anymore.
Huge point, Shannon. And I've heard this as well. You think about a guy who's gone to the NFL, made it all the way to the NFL. Think of all the high school and college football players who would love to and never do. But, you know, these players are getting head injuries in middle school and high school and college. And the younger you are, the less the brain has formed. And apparently the more susceptible you are to a traumatic brain injury, to football helmets colliding at a high speed. If that happens to you in middle school or high school, that can do as much, if not more damage than in the National Football League. So you're talking about these players, Shannon, who, you know, get out of the league early, who don't have the pension or the medical resources to address this. I mean, there's a lot of players who didn't make it to the NFL, who made it to college, and even players who didn't make it to college who had severe hits in high school and as far back as middle school, who are at risk for CTE down the line. It's very, very, very scary. But I find it ironic, as you mentioned, there are people who still say, not a big deal. I'm not that worried about it. You know, here we are mentioning that right after having our COVID discussion, and so many people who refuse to get vaccinated because they either don't believe it or don't believe the vaccines or believe the vaccines are dangerous. It's just scary. And again, I tend to do as much research as I can on whatever the situation is and trust in the vast, overwhelming majority of medical experts or scientists who have come to their best decisions on these things after they're doing a lot of research into the topics.
It's astonishing the number of people who refuse to believe or accept things because they are not happening directly to them or directly part of their life. When it is clear as day that those things are real and they do happen, and there is a chance that it will affect your life or someone you know.
My goodness. Well, Shannon, we didn't publicize it on the show. There was so much going on. We just didn't get to it. But our poll question today was talking about the NBA finals. And there are 4 possible outcomes now, either Bucks or Suns in 6, either Bucks or Suns in 7. And we asked our listeners / viewers what they thought would happen. Do you have poll results in front of you yet?
Yes. So we have about 54% saying that ultimately it will be the Suns who walk away with it. 33% saying it'll take 7 games, while 30% saying it'll only take 6. I'd like to think 6, but I don't know after seeing Bucks play on their home floor.
Yeah, I see now at this point, and I kind of pull a little more for the Bucks because there's more Spurs connections on the Bucks, but I like both teams. So I'm now that we're at 2-2, let's go 7. Let's have some fun. You know, seventh games are great fun. And that way too, granted, you don't want to lose a 7th game, but whoever would, if they go deep and play 7 games, you know, we talked about Mike Budenholzer maybe being on the hot seat for the Bucks. I mean, you can't, either team, if this thing goes 7, you can't fault anybody for not winning the thing. I know they'll be crushed if they go 7 and don't, whoever it might be, but I'm kind of hoping this thing goes 7 now.
Selfishly, I hope it goes 6 just because that's extra days rest for those guys that are traveling to Tokyo.
Ooh, that's a good point. And
the USA could maybe use a little spark.
And exactly.
Beal, you hinted at it earlier.
Ooh, that scares me.
And has tested positive for COVID, or has he tested positive, or
we know he's in the health and safety protocol, which means he either tested positive or he's come in very close contact with somebody who had it.
Which is, as you mentioned, he's around a lot of other guys who play basketball for that team.
And another selfish reason for the NBA finishing in 6 is we got Cowboys. The press conference is in 6 days. Yeah. Jerry Jones stated. So we need to focus on football. And we will. Shannon, outstanding as always.
Thank you, sir.
You rock. We'll do this again in 21 hours. Dave Ayler, who taught me the meaning of the Adidas acronym for the first time in my life. Where have I been? Outstanding, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tanner Carlson, always outstanding, as is Jeff Garcia of Locked On Spurs. Have yourself a fantastic Thirsty Thursday, and we'll see you mañana. Adios, amigos. Take care. Be safe.